7 days, Mr. Moretti, and every clue has told us more about Emily than it has told us where she is. At 6:10 on the 7th morning, Daniel Brooks stood across from Vincent Moretti's desk and placed 7 objects on the dartboard between them. Vincent had slept fewer than 3 hours each night since Emily Parker disappeared. His charcoal suit was still pressed, his voice remained controlled, but the untouched coffee beside his hand had gone cold hours ago. Daniel pointed to the first object, a subway receipt from downtown Chicago. Then a hospital visitor sticker, a motel matchbook, a child's drawing of a woman holding an umbrella, an employee insurance form, a bus ticket, and finally a small brass key delivered to Moretti Tower 20 minutes earlier. 6 clues had led nowhere. The subway receipt belonged to a route Emily sometimes used when helping employees get home after late shifts. The hospital sticker proved she had visited a medical center 3 weeks earlier, but nobody there would discuss another person's private information. The motel matchbook came from a place where Emily had never registered as a guest. The child's drawing carried no last name. The insurance form had been copied from a closed employee file. The bus ticket ended at a station where 300 passengers arrived every hour. Vincent looked at the brass key. Where did it come from? No return address. No usable fingerprints. It arrived inside an envelope addressed to you. Daniel placed the envelope beside it. Vincent opened the folded paper inside. You have been looking for Emily. Start looking for the person she refused to abandon. The room went silent. For 7 days, Vincent had used private investigators, corporate security teams, transportation contacts, hotel managers, and business associates across the Midwest. Every lead ended with another empty room, another mistaken witness, another security recording that showed someone who was not Emily. He knew what time she arrived at work. He knew how she organized his meetings. He knew which coffee she ordered when she worked late. But after 7 years, Vincent did not know where she went when she needed help, who she trusted outside Moretti Tower, or whose telephone number she would remember without looking it up. The insurance form, Vincent said. Daniel opened the copied document. Robert Hayes, warehouse inventory supervisor. 11 years with the company. Why was Emily reviewing his file? His employment was scheduled for termination 8 days ago. The official report says he deleted confidential shipment records. Vincent looked at the signature approving the recommendation. Nathan Cole, Senior Operations Director. Was Hayes terminated? Yes. Then why would Emily disappear for him? Daniel turned to the final page. His 10-year-old daughter, Lily, is receiving long-term medical treatment. Losing his position disrupted the family's employer-sponsored insurance coverage. Vincent looked again at the child's drawing. A woman beneath a blue umbrella. A small girl holding her hand. In the corner, written in uneven purple letters, were 2 words. Thank you. Vincent had spent 7 days searching airports, hotels, hospitals, highways, and security cameras. Emily had spent 7 years noticing people whose names he had never learned. Find Robert Hayes, Vincent said. Daniel did not move. Before you give another order, ask yourself why Emily believed disappearing was safer than bringing this to you. Vincent's expression hardened. She is missing, and every clue says she left for a reason. Daniel placed the insurance form in front of him. If you want to find Emily, stop searching for a woman who vanished. Find out what happened to the family she refused to leave behind. Vincent stared at Robert Hayes' photograph. For the first time in 7 days, he understood that the question was no longer where Emily had gone. The question was what she had discovered inside his own organization that made leaving him seem like the only way to protect someone weaker. 7 years earlier, Emily Parker learned that the people who kept Moretti companies running were often the people Vincent Moretti noticed least. On her 3rd week at Moretti Tower, a payroll clerk arrived at her desk with an error that had reduced his paycheck by $300. Emily called accounting, stayed on the line until the mistake was corrected, and checked 2 days later to make sure the money had arrived. A month after that, she arranged a ride home for a custodian whose car had broken down during a January snowstorm. She remembered security guards' birthdays, asked drivers about their children, and kept a private list of employees struggling with insurance claims, delayed benefits, or family emergencies. None of those tasks appeared in her job description. Vincent never asked her to do them. Most days, he never knew they happened. Robert Hayes first came to Emily's desk 18 months before she disappeared. He was a warehouse inventory supervisor with 11 years at the company. a quiet man who arrived wearing a faded work jacket and holding an insurance denial letter. "My daughter needs continued treatment," he said. "They say the authorization is incomplete." Emily read the letter. "What is her name?" "Lily." "How old is she?" "9." Emily called the insurance administrator, found a missing physician certification, contacted the benefits department, and stayed after 6 that evening until the corrected documents were submitted. 2 days later, Robert returned carrying a child's drawing of Emily beneath a blue umbrella. "Lily wanted you to have this." Emily smiled and placed it inside her desk drawer. Vincent walked past moments later. The board meeting moved to 4. "I already changed the schedule." He nodded and continued toward his office. He never saw the drawing. Over the following year, Robert occasionally stopped by Emily's desk. He brought updates about Lily's treatment and once left a small bag of homemade cookies from his wife. Emily never treated him like someone asking for favors. She treated him like a person whose problems mattered. That difference was why, 8 days before Emily vanished, Robert called her instead of anyone in management. "They say I deleted shipment records," he said. His voice sounded exhausted. "I did not." Emily opened his personnel file. "Who investigated?" "Nathan Cole's office." Emily became still. Nathan was the senior operations director responsible for the warehouse system. "When did they tell you?" "This morning. They want me gone by Friday." Emily looked at the insurance information attached to his employment record. Lily's continued coverage depended on Robert's job. "Do not sign anything yet." "Emily, I cannot afford an attorney." "I did not ask if you could." That afternoon, she reviewed the shipment logs. 3 records had been deleted using Robert's credentials during hours when security records showed him working on another floor. The administrative access trail had been closed by Nathan's office. Emily submitted a confidential internal complaint before leaving work. 3 hours later, she checked the system again. The complaint was gone. No archive, no review number, no record that she had ever filed it. Emily sat alone beneath the fluorescent office lights, staring at the empty screen. The next morning, Robert found a termination notice waiting at the warehouse. His company access had already been disabled. By noon, Lily's drawing was missing from Emily's desk drawer. In its place was a folded piece of paper containing 5 words. "Stop helping people who are gone." Emily read the message twice, then looked through the glass wall toward Vincent's office. He was surrounded by executives, signing documents, making decisions, controlling a company that could erase a complaint in 3 hours and destroy a family before lunch. For 7 years, Emily had quietly repaired problems before Vincent ever saw them. That morning, she understood the cost of making injustice invisible. She closed Robert's file, placed the anonymous message inside her briefcase, and decided that this time, helping one family would require doing something Vincent Moretti could not ignore. Emily did not leave Moretti Tower immediately. For the next 2 days, she continued arriving at 8:30, carrying Vincent's schedule, answering calls, and walking through polished hallways as if nothing had changed. But every quiet hour became part of an investigation. She compared Robert's shipment records with archived inventory reports stored outside Nathan Cole's department. She requested routine maintenance logs from warehouse supervisors who trusted her enough not to ask why. She spoke with a payroll clerk who remembered Robert working overtime on the evening the records were deleted. She found a cafeteria receipt showing he had purchased dinner 17 minutes after the system claimed he accessed a restricted terminal 12 floors away. None of the details proved everything alone. Together, they created a question Nathan could not explain. Emily copied only records she was authorized to access and documented every source. She knew suspicion was not evidence, and she knew accusing a senior executive without proof would only give him time to protect himself. On the 3rd morning, she discovered that the deleted shipment records had been restored briefly at 2:14 before disappearing again 9 minutes later. The restoration came through an administrative account controlled by Nathan's operations office. Emily printed the access history and placed it inside her briefcase. At 11:20, Nathan appeared beside her desk. "Busy morning?" he asked. Emily closed the file she was reading. "Most mornings are." Nathan smiled, but his eyes moved toward her briefcase. "You have been requesting old warehouse reports. Employees ask questions. I try to answer them. Robert Hayes is no longer an employee." Emily held his gaze. "That does not make the records disappear." Nathan's smile faded. Some people create problems because they do not understand when a matter is finished. And some matters look finished because someone removed the questions. The hallway became quiet. Nathan adjusted his cuff and walked away without another word. Emily waited until the elevator doors closed before looking toward Vincent's office. He was inside a meeting with 3 executives, unaware that the man he trusted to oversee warehouse operations had just confirmed something without admitting anything. That afternoon, Emily called Robert from a public telephone inside a neighborhood library. "Do you still have copies of your employment documents?" "Some." "Take Lily and your wife somewhere you trust tonight." Robert became silent. "Are we in danger?" "I do not know. That is why I am asking you to leave before someone decides you are easier to silence with paperwork than to answer with facts." "Where should we go?" Emily thought about Margaret Lewis, a retired benefits counselor who had helped employees navigate insurance disputes for years. "I know someone who can help." Before leaving the library, Emily checked her personal email from a public computer. A message waited from an unknown sender. No subject. One sentence. "You should have stopped when Robert lost his job." Emily deleted nothing. She photographed the screen, recorded the time, and forwarded the message to an encrypted account she had created that morning. At 5:30, she returned to Moretti Tower and found Vincent standing beside her desk. "You missed the 4 o'clock call with Milwaukee. I rescheduled it for tomorrow." Vincent studied her. "You never miss calls." Emily looked at the man she had served for 7 years. She wanted to tell him everything. Then she remembered the vanished complaint, Robert's disabled access, Lily's missing drawing, and Nathan standing beside her desk without fear. "Everyone misses something eventually," she said. Vincent walked back into his office. Emily waited until the glass door closed. Then she removed the child's drawing from a copied file, folded it carefully, and placed it beside Robert's insurance form. By midnight, Robert and his family were driving north toward Wisconsin. Before sunrise, Emily would leave Chicago too. And when Vincent finally realized she was gone, the first clue waiting for him would not lead to her. It would lead to the family she had chosen to protect. By the end of the first day, Vincent had reviewed every security recording from Moretti Tower and found nothing that explained where Emily had gone. Her apartment was undisturbed. Her car remained in its assigned garage space. Her personal phone had stopped connecting before sunrise, and no airline reservation appeared under her name. Daniel Brooks placed the subway receipt on Vincent's desk that evening. It showed a station near the hospital where Emily had helped employees resolve medical emergencies, but the trail ended among hundreds of passengers. On the second day, a hospital visitor sticker appeared inside an envelope delivered to a Moretti company office. Vincent followed it personally. Privacy rules prevented staff from discussing patients or visitors, and the only useful detail came from an older receptionist who remembered Emily because she had once spent 4 hours helping a warehouse employee complete insurance paperwork. Vincent left knowing less about Emily's location and more about the life she lived beyond his office. On the third day, Daniel found the motel matchbook inside a taxi Emily had used weeks earlier. The motel was 30 miles outside Chicago. Vincent drove there before noon. No registration. No payment record. No employee remembered seeing her. Another empty room. Another cold cup of coffee. Another night without sleep. On the 4th day, a bus ticket led Daniel to a station on the south side. A driver recognized Emily's photograph. "She helped one of our dispatchers when his paycheck was delayed," he said. "Good woman." Vincent asked when the driver had last seen her. "Months ago." Vincent stood beneath the fluorescent lights while commuters moved around him. Everyone seemed to know a version of Emily he had never met. On the 5th day, the insurance form surfaced in a copied personnel archive. Robert Hayes's name connected the first 4 clues, but Robert and his family had already left their apartment. Their car had passed through a toll point heading north before disappearing from ordinary records. Daniel wanted more time to investigate quietly. Vincent refused. Fear had begun replacing judgment. He called Nathan Cole into his office that afternoon. "What happened to Robert Hayes?" Vincent asked. Nathan remained calm. He deleted confidential shipment records and was terminated. Emily reviewed his file. Emily reviewed hundreds of employee files. Her complaint disappeared. For the first time, Nathan hesitated. "I know nothing about a complaint." Vincent leaned forward. "Then explain why your administrative account accessed the records she was reviewing." Nathan's expression changed for less than a second, but Daniel saw it. So did Vincent. Routine system maintenance, Nathan said. I want every record preserved. Of course. Nathan left the office. Without argument, Daniel waited until the elevator doors closed. You should not have done that. Vincent looked at him. He knows something. Now he knows you know it too. Within 2 hours, 3 archived warehouse files became unavailable because of scheduled system maintenance. An outside consultant who had agreed to review Robert's employment documents suddenly withdrew, citing a conflict. A Moretti transportation contact reported that someone had requested information about vehicles traveling toward Wisconsin. Vincent stared at the reports as the consequences of his impatience appeared one by one. He had wanted answers. Instead, he had warned the person Emily had been investigating. Can we recover the files? Vincent asked. Some copies exist outside the main system, Daniel said. Emily planned for this. Vincent looked toward her empty desk beyond the glass wall. She knew I would confront him. She knew you might. Daniel placed the child's drawing beside the insurance form. That is why she did not tell you. The words remained in the room long after Daniel left. Vincent had spent 5 days using influence, money, and private contacts to find Emily. Every clue had made the search larger, but it had also made him smaller. He knew how to command thousands of employees, yet he had never noticed the people Emily quietly protected. He knew how to pressure executives, yet one impatient confrontation had endangered the evidence she had spent days preserving. Near midnight, Vincent stood alone beside the windows overlooking Chicago. His phone rang. Daniel's voice came through immediately. An envelope arrived at the tower. What is inside? The brass key. A motel room number. Wisconsin. Vincent closed his eyes. Prepare the security team. Daniel was silent. Vincent, if Emily wanted your security team there, she would have called you. Vincent looked at the 7 objects spread across his desk. For the first time since Emily disappeared, he understood that finding her might require leaving his power behind. Vincent left Chicago before dawn with Daniel beside him and no security convoy behind them. The Wisconsin address belonged to a roadside motel, nearly 180 miles north of Moretti Tower, far from the private airports, luxury hotels, and guarded properties Vincent had searched during the previous 5 days. The brass key opened a storage locker at a bus terminal 12 miles from the motel. Inside, they found copies of Robert's employment records, medical insurance appeals, warehouse access logs, and a sealed envelope addressed to an independent legal aid organization. Daniel examined the documents carefully. Emily created backups before she left. Vincent looked at the timestamps. Nathan knows some records still exist. Because you confronted him. Vincent said nothing. By 9:30 that morning, Daniel received confirmation that Nathan's office had requested emergency deletion authority for archived warehouse data, claiming a security concern. The request had been blocked by an outside compliance vendor, but Nathan now knew someone had preserved copies beyond his reach. We need to warn Emily, Vincent said. We do not know where she is. We have the motel room number. Daniel looked at him. And Nathan may have access to the same transportation information your contacts were using. Vincent understood the implication. Every call he had made, every person he had pressured, every question asked in his name had widened the circle around Emily. His search had not protected her. It had made secrecy harder. At 10:15, they reached the motel. Vincent entered the office alone and asked for the room number from the envelope. The manager checked the register. Nobody is staying in that room. Vincent placed Emily's photograph on the counter. Have you seen her? The manager studied it. She was here 2 nights ago. Paid cash for 1 room. Left yesterday morning with a man, a woman, and a little girl. Where did they go? She did not say. Another dead end. Vincent stepped outside into the cold parking lot. Daniel was waiting beside the car. Nathan resigned 40 minutes ago, he said. His attorney sent notice to the company. He also attempted to access 3 archived systems before his credentials were suspended. Vincent looked toward the empty motel windows. He is trying to destroy what remains. And Robert's temporary legal consultant withdrew after receiving questions about possible conflicts with Moretti companies. Vincent turned sharply. Questions from whom? We do not know yet. Daniel paused. But your confrontation started this. Vincent walked several feet away and stopped beneath the gray Wisconsin sky. For 7 years, people had praised his ability to act quickly. Decisions made in minutes. Problems removed before they reached his desk. But speed without understanding had protected Nathan more than it had protected Emily. Vincent returned to the car. No more calls to hotels. No more transportation inquiries. Tell every contact to stop searching. Daniel studied him. You are ending the search? I am ending the part that makes things worse. Vincent opened the passenger door, then noticed something beneath the windshield wiper. A folded motel receipt. On the back, written in Emily's handwriting, were 6 words. Margaret knows where truth can breathe. Daniel recognized the name first. Margaret Lewis, the retired benefits counselor who had spent years helping Moretti employees challenge denied claims. She lived 35 miles away in a small town near Lake Michigan. Vincent looked at the message. Emily had not disappeared without leaving a path. She had left a path designed to test whether he would follow it with power or with patience. 1 hour later, they reached Margaret's modest house. Vincent walked to the front door alone. Margaret opened it before he knocked. You finally stopped bringing the whole city behind you, she said. Vincent looked past her into the quiet house. A child's purple backpack rested beside the stairs. Is Emily here? Margaret held his gaze. That depends. On what? Whether you came to take her back, or whether you finally came to listen. Vincent looked at the backpack, then at the woman standing between him and the answer he had spent 6 days searching for. For the first time, he did not give an order. I came to listen. Margaret stepped aside and allowed Vincent into the house. Daniel remained outside in the car. The living room was modest, warm, and quiet, with family. Photographs on the walls and a stack of insurance documents covering the dining table. Vincent noticed Lily's purple backpack near the stairs, then heard voices from the kitchen. Robert Hayes sat beside his wife while speaking with an attorney through a laptop. Lily was at the table with colored pencils spread around an open math workbook. Emily sat beside her. She wore the same navy coat she had left Chicago in, and exhaustion showed beneath her eyes. When she saw Vincent, she did not stand. Vincent stopped in the doorway. For 6 days, he had imagined this moment differently. He had expected relief, anger, questions, perhaps an argument. Instead, he saw Emily helping a 10-year-old girl divide fractions while Robert's family prepared to submit evidence that should have been protected inside Vincent's own company. You found me, Emily said. Vincent looked at the documents covering the table. I found the reason. Emily closed Lily's workbook. Did you? Margaret led Lily into the living room, giving the adults privacy. Emily placed a folder in front of Vincent. Nathan altered shipment records, used Robert's credentials to create a false access trail, and suppressed my complaint after I discovered the inconsistencies. The copies in the locker are only part of it. Vincent opened the folder. Inside were payroll records, system logs, archived emails, and written statements from 2 warehouse employees. Why did you not bring this to me? Emily looked at him steadily. Because when you became afraid, you confronted Nathan before you understood what was happening. Vincent said nothing. Within hours, records became unavailable, Robert lost legal support, and people started asking questions about transportation toward Wisconsin. You wanted to protect me. Instead, you made it harder for me to protect them. Robert lowered his eyes. Vincent looked at the man whose name had meant nothing to him 1 week earlier. I caused that. Emily did not soften the truth. Yes. The room became silent. Vincent had spent his life surrounded by people who changed their words when he entered. Emily never had. What happens now, he asked. She seemed surprised by the question. The evidence goes to independent investigators and appropriate authorities. Robert's termination is reviewed outside Nathan's department. His family receives documented interim medical coverage while the review continues. Every employee who gave a statement is protected from retaliation. Vincent looked at her. And you? I decide for myself. He nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Emily studied him for several seconds. Do not take control of the investigation. Preserve every record. Pay Robert's documented legal expenses through a transparent restitution process. Restore temporary benefits without demanding loyalty, silence, or gratitude. And stop treating every problem as something only your power can solve. Vincent closed the folder. The old answer came quickly. Call the lawyers. Bring Nathan back. Control every conversation. Decide the outcome before anyone else could. Vincent let the impulse pass. He took out his phone and called Daniel. End every private search operation. Preserve all company records connected to Robert Hayes and Nathan Cole. Contact outside counsel and independent forensic investigators. Establish interim medical coverage for Robert's family through documented company procedures. No one contacts witnesses except through counsel. Daniel was silent for a moment. Understood. Vincent ended the call. Emily watched him. That is a beginning. Not enough. A beginning is not supposed to be enough. Near noon, Robert's attorney confirmed that the evidence package had been received by an independent organization. Margaret brought Lily back into the kitchen. The girl looked at Vincent, then at Emily. Are you going home now? Emily glanced toward Vincent. He understood the question was not his to answer. Not today, Emily said. Lily returned to her workbook. Vincent stood. I will leave. Emily looked surprised again. You searched almost a week to find me. And finding you does not give me the right to decide when you return. He walked toward the front door, then stopped. Emily, I am sorry. She held his gaze. Then make sure Robert is not the last person you finally notice. Vincent stepped outside into the cold Wisconsin air. Daniel waited beside the car, but asked no questions. As they drove south toward Chicago, Vincent looked at the empty highway and understood something 7 years of authority had never taught him. He had found Emily on the 6th day, but bringing her back was no longer the victory. The real test was whether he could change the place she had needed to leave. Vincent returned to Moretti Tower shortly after 3 that afternoon and walked past Emily's empty desk without entering his office. Daniel followed him into the main conference room, where outside counsel and 2 independent forensic investigators were already waiting. On the table lay copies of Robert's employment records, system access histories, insurance documents, and the evidence Emily had preserved. You have full access to the relevant systems, Vincent said. No executive approval is required to examine records connected to this matter, including decisions made by me. One investigator looked at him carefully. You understand that independence means you do not control our findings. I understand. The answer surprised everyone except Daniel. By evening, the investigators had preserved archive data from multiple company servers. They confirmed that Nathan's administrative office had accessed Robert's credentials during the disputed period and that several records had been altered after Emily submitted her complaint. Vincent listened without interrupting. When one attorney suggested waiting before restoring Robert's temporary benefits, Vincent refused. His family should not carry the cost of our uncertainty. The review is not complete. Then document the interim coverage and let the review continue. The next morning, Robert received confirmation that his family's medical coverage would continue while the independent investigation proceeded. His documented legal expenses were transferred through a formal restitution process. Vincent did not call him. He did not ask for thanks. He did not announce the decision publicly. On the 3rd day, 2 warehouse employees gave protected statements confirming that Nathan had pressured staff members to change inventory reports. The forensic investigators recovered deleted complaint records and found that Nathan's office had attempted to remove archived data after Vincent confronted him. Vincent read the preliminary findings twice. Do we have enough to remove him, he asked. Enough to suspend his authority and refer the evidence for further legal review, outside counsel replied. Vincent nodded. Do it through documented procedures. Daniel watched him. You are not going to speak with Nathan? No, a week ago, you would have. Vincent looked toward the empty chair where Emily usually sat during executive meetings. A week ago, I thought control and protection were the same thing. Nathan's authority was formally suspended pending investigation. Relevant findings were transferred to appropriate authorities, and employees connected to the case received written protection against retaliation. Vincent ordered a review of every complaint closed by Nathan's department during the previous 3 years. By the end of the week, 12 additional cases required independent examination. Vincent sat alone in his office that Friday evening, surrounded by files belonging to employees whose names he had never known. A payroll clerk denied overtime. A driver disciplined after reporting unsafe scheduling. A custodian whose benefits appeal disappeared without review. Emily had spent years quietly helping people survive problems the system should have prevented. Vincent had called that loyalty. Now he understood that her kindness had been compensating for his blindness. At 5:30, Daniel entered with an envelope. From Wisconsin. Vincent opened it. Inside was the child's drawing of Emily beneath the blue umbrella. On the back, Robert had written a short message. Lily wanted you to see the person who helped us before anyone believed we mattered. Vincent placed the drawing beside the 7 clues on his desk. Is Emily coming back? Daniel asked. Vincent looked toward the darkening Chicago skyline. I do not know. Are you going to ask her? Vincent shook his head. Not yet. The following Monday, Vincent called every senior executive into the conference room. He placed Robert's case file at the center of the table. We built a company where an employee had to lose his job, a family had to leave the state, and my secretary had to disappear before anyone with authority listened. No one spoke. That ends now. He announced an independent review of employee complaints, confidential reporting channels outside executive control, and temporary protections for workers whose cases required investigation. One executive objected to the cost. Vincent looked at him. The cost began when we decided ordinary people were easier to replace than to hear. The room went silent. 2 days later, at 8:27 in the morning, the private elevator opened on the 42nd floor. Vincent looked up. Emily stepped out carrying her worn leather briefcase. She walked past her old desk and entered his office. Vincent stood, but he did not approach her. Robert called me, she said. His coverage is active. The investigation is independent. 12 old complaints are being reopened. Yes. Emily placed her briefcase on the table. Why? Vincent looked at the woman he had searched nearly a week to find. Because you were right. Fixing one case is not enough. Emily held his gaze. Then I came back to see whether you were willing to fix the system. Emily remained standing beside Vincent's desk, her worn leather briefcase resting between them like a reminder of everything that had changed. I will not return to my old position, she said. Vincent nodded. I did not expect you to. I spent 7 years solving problems before they reached you. That protected employees for a day, but it also protected the system from consequences. Vincent looked through the glass wall toward the desk where Emily had once organized his entire life. What do you want instead? Emily opened her briefcase and removed a 12-page proposal. An independent employee advocacy and ethics office. Separate reporting channels. Authority to examine complaints across every Moretti company. Access to relevant records through documented procedures. Protection for employees who report misconduct. An independent board that you cannot dismiss because you dislike its findings. Vincent read the first page. Who leads it? I will. If the board approves me. And if your office investigates me, then you answer questions like everyone else. The room became silent. Vincent turned another page. 6 months earlier, he would have rejected the proposal before reaching the second paragraph. 1 week earlier, he would have demanded control over appointments, budgets, and investigations. Now he understood that every condition he wanted to remove was exactly why the office needed to exist. What happens to my authority? He asked. You keep the authority that belongs to your position. You lose the privilege of making inconvenient truths disappear. Vincent looked at Emily. And if I refuse? I leave today. She did not raise her voice. She did not threaten him. She simply waited. Vincent picked up a pen. Outside counsel reviews the structure. The independent board controls investigations. Your office receives protected funding for 3 years. Any attempt by an executive to interfere becomes a reportable violation. Emily studied him, including interference from you, especially from me. Vincent signed the proposal. Emily looked at the signature for several seconds. That is still only paper. Then tell me what comes next. Over the following 3 months, the new office took shape on the 38th floor of Moretti Tower. Robert joined as an employee liaison after the independent forensic review cleared him of wrongdoing. His family's benefits were restored through documented company procedures, and his employment record was formally corrected. Nathan remained removed from authority while the findings connected to his conduct moved through appropriate legal channels. Margaret Lewis accepted a position on the Community Advisory Board. Daniel established independent security procedures preventing executives from altering complaint records without review. Emily moved into a modest office with her own name on the door. She no longer carried Vincent's schedule. She no longer stayed late because he had forgotten to plan ahead. She arrived at 8:30 and left at 5:30. Vincent learned to manage meetings without expecting another person to sacrifice her life for his convenience. 1. Evening. He found Emily reviewing the first quarterly report. 34 complaints, she said. 9 required formal investigation. 4 resulted in management changes. 3 employees received compensation for documented losses. Vincent looked at the report. Is that good? It means people finally believe someone will listen. And the number of complaints. If you want fewer complaints, build a better company. Do not build quieter employees. Vincent nodded. At 5:30, Emily closed the report and picked up her briefcase. I am leaving. I know. She paused. You used to schedule meetings after 6. I hired an executive assistant who told me that poor planning is not an emergency. Emily almost smiled. Keep that person. She walked toward the elevator. Vincent followed only as far as the hallway. Emily. She turned. Why did you come back? Vincent asked. Emily looked toward the offices where employees were still speaking with investigators, advisors, and advocates without lowering their voices. Because this time, you changed the place instead of asking me to change my mind. The elevator doors opened. Emily stepped inside. Vincent remained where he was. As the doors closed, he understood that finding Emily had taken nearly a week. Building a world where she could stay by choice would take much longer. 6 months later, Emily stood at the front of the main conference room on the 38th floor while employees, independent board members, community advisors, and compliance specialists reviewed the first major report from the Advocacy and Ethics Office. Her worn leather briefcase rested beside her chair. Robert Hayes sat near the middle of the table, no longer the employee whose name had disappeared inside a closed file, but the liaison responsible for helping workers understand their rights and reporting options. Vincent entered quietly and took an empty seat near the end of the table. No one stopped speaking when he arrived. 6 months earlier, silence had followed him into every room. Now an employee continued questioning a management decision, while another board member challenged the cost of expanding confidential reporting services. Vincent listened. Emily finished presenting the results. 83 complaints had been submitted. 21 required formal investigations. 9 resulted in management changes. Several employees received compensation for documented losses. Every case connected to Nathan's former department had been independently reviewed, and relevant findings remained with appropriate legal authorities. The most important number is not 83, Emily said. It is the number of employees who came forward before losing their jobs, their benefits, or their trust that anyone would listen. Vincent looked around the table. These were people he once would have called replaceable. Now they were speaking openly inside a company that had once required Emily to disappear before the truth could survive. After the meeting, Robert approached Vincent near the windows. Lily made something for you. He handed him a folded drawing. Vincent opened it. Emily stood beside an open door beneath a blue umbrella. Robert and his family were walking through the doorway. Vincent stood several feet behind Emily, his hands at his sides. She remembered the first drawing, Vincent said. She remembers people who help, Robert replied. Vincent looked at the picture. Why am I standing behind her? Robert smiled faintly. Lily said you finally learned not to block the door. Across the room, Emily closed her briefcase. Vincent walked toward her. I have wanted to ask you something for 6 months. That sounds dangerous. Why did it take me nearly a week to find you? Emily looked through the windows at Chicago. Because you searched places powerful people understand. Airports, hotels, private transportation, security systems. She turned toward him. You did not search the lives of ordinary people, because you never believed those lives could hide anything important. Vincent accepted the answer. And why did you come back? Because I wanted to see whether you would change the place instead of asking me to change my mind. Did I? Emily looked around the office. Employees spoke freely with investigators. Robert laughed with 2 warehouse workers. Margaret Lewis reviewed documents with a young benefits counselor. Daniel stood near the elevators, listening while a security employee disagreed with him without fear. You started, Emily said. Vincent nodded. He had learned that real change was never completed by one signature, one apology, or one good decision. At 6:10 that evening, Emily picked up her coat and briefcase. You are leaving early, Vincent said. Emily glanced at the clock. I am leaving on time. Vincent almost smiled. Of course. She walked toward the elevator, then stopped. Robert and his family are having dinner Sunday. Margaret will be there. Vincent looked at her. Is that an invitation? It is an opportunity to arrive on time. The elevator doors opened. I will be there. Emily stepped inside. Do not bring a security team. I learned that lesson. The doors began to close. Vincent looked at the 7 objects displayed inside a small glass case near the advocacy office. The subway receipt, hospital sticker, motel matchbook, child's drawing, insurance form, bus ticket, and brass key. 7 clues. 7 days. 7 years of knowing where Emily worked without understanding why people trusted her. The elevator doors closed. Vincent did not call her back. The search had ended months ago, but the lesson had only begun. 7 days had taught Vincent where Emily was. The 8th day taught him why people like her should never have to disappear to be seen.